Good evening, everyone. Today is the 18th of July 2021, and I'm Thomas Beyebenwo from City Law Solicitors. I'll be having discussion with you regarding your employment right at the workplace. As most of you are already aware, tomorrow, which is the 19th of July 2021, brings an end to third coronavirus restriction in England. And that's what some people will call Freedom Day. Obviously, this Freedom Day means that there is going to be an end to face mask wearing, even though it's advisable that if you're in a crowded places, perhaps it's better to wear your face mask to protect yourself for your own safety. And then social distancing will no longer be enforceable in law. Quite significantly, nightclubs are going to reopen, and theaters and all venues that all of us have missed immensely are going to reopen. But the most important reason why I'm here today is to discuss your employment right. Because I know that from September, the furlough, which is the pandemic support scheme that government have used to subsidize employees' wages, is coming to an end. The lift in the universal credit, which is an additional token that supported families temporarily, will also come to an end. Now, it's quite obvious that when subsidies that are supporting companies to enable them to pay wages of staff or employees are suddenly taken off or is suddenly terminated, this might mean that struggling companies that are struggling to sustain themselves, or companies that are having difficulty because of the coronavirus, might find it very, very difficult to continue to pay the wages of their staff. So these companies may be seeking to either make people redundant or to dismiss people. Or they might even be seeking to bring substantial changes in the contract of employment of their staff. But all these actions that employers are likely to take as a result of the Freedom Day obviously have some implications in law. And it's my duty to come here to enlighten you, to create awareness of your rights. Because I know that most of you are going to be perhaps vulnerable at the workplace. And this might not be any fault of the employers because of the difficult times and the challenges we are all going through. Now, so having said that, today I'm going to look at about 3 or 4 areas. Now, when these changes come to an end, which they have been in place for a while, I'm very sure that most of us have been working from home. And I must also say here that when I finish this introduction, I will also want to speak Twi for my fellow Ghanaians who have also been watching me and have been listening attentively to this shows and updates of the law from City Law Solicitors. So I'm obviously going to speak Twi, but for the benefit of other listeners, because employment affects most of us, our livelihood. Most of us are employed. Some of us are even self-employed, but even that employment affects our livelihood. And therefore, I'm sure that a lot of people out there who will want to have the benefit of this update that I'm going to give this evening. And it's for this reason that I want to speak English. Then when I finish, I'll be able to speak Twi So if you are watching me tonight or if you are listening, kindly bear with me because I'm going to translate everything I'm saying in English in Twi very soon. And Beyebenwo, I'm also going to allow listeners or viewers to phone in with their legal questions, and I'll be able to assist you guys freely. Now, so as I was saying, most of us obviously have been working from home for a while now. And I know that some of us are either comfortable working from home, and there are some of us who also relish the choice of going to the workplace to work because we miss our friends. So I am going to look at what will happen to those who, for whatever reason, want to continue to work from home. And then I also look at those who, for whatever reason, want to go to the workplace and work. Because I must take note of the fact that it's not everybody that might want to work from home or might want to work at the office. So I'm starting with those of you who want to continue to work from home, and you are right. Now, if for whatever reason you want to work from home, then because the restriction, the third coronavirus restriction or lockdown is coming to an end on Monday, then you must have a reasonable excuse for working from home if the employer so wish that you should come back to the workplace. And those reasons must have cause of concern. So it's, for example, you are somebody who is vulnerable and you feel that because currently the infection rate is still high and is still going up, then you must be able to put those reasons across. Because employers are bound by the Health and Safety at Work Act, to be precise, Section 2, that they must take reasonable assessment of the safety of their personnel at the workplace. And this safety includes the mental capacity, the physical facilities that are at the workplace. So if, for example, the workplace is not so secure, such that the employer have not put measures in place to, for example, forestall or to prevent infection, then that employee who might have a very good reason for not being able to put herself in jeopardy by going to work, might have a reason to ask that employer to continue to allow him or her to work from home. So that's the first right post Freedom Day. Obviously, employers, by mutual obligation of the nature of contract between employee and employer, requires that employers provide work to the employee and the employee undertakes that work. But for those of you who want to continue to go to the workplace because you mix your friends, because you are tired of working from home, because of the fact that home working is not conducive for you, then this is your right. The first right is that whenever any of us signed our contract of employment, Section 1, Subsection 4, Section H of the Employment Rights Act 1996 stipulates that our place of work should be stated in the terms of particulars or terms of employment. And in most cases, there will be a mobility clause which allows the employer to perhaps transfer you to certain places of work. And obviously in March 2020, I'm sure some employers might have given reasonable notice, because under Section 4 of the same Act, employers must give notice where they are bringing in changes of the terms of the employment or the particulars of statement. And those changes must be acceptable, must be agreed by employees. So if for whatever reason you want to go to the workplace, then of course you can refer to your contract of employment and make the employer aware that now that there are no restrictions to restrict you from coming to work, you want to come to the workplace. It is then for the employer to decide how he's going to make that workplace available for you to be able to work safely without restrictions. So that's the right that I want to enlighten you about concerning whether you have to go back to work or you have to continue to work from home. So on each occasion, there are mutually exclusive reasons for you to either continue to stay and work from home or to go to the office. But the elephant in the room, which is what is going to happen? Obviously, September is just in sight. And therefore, when the subsidy that the government have been providing through the coronavirus support scheme is suddenly taken off in September, then those of us who have been at home on furlough and receiving 80% of the wages, and now employers are meant to contribute more, with government providing about 70%, those pay might be taken off. Now in this case, when the company or the employer who is struggling is unable to continue to pay you, then that employer may seek to make changes to the terms of contract. So I'm going to take my time to explain to you some of the changes that may happen. And I'm sure that most of these changes may be done illegally. When I say illegal, it means that they are not done in accordance with the law. So for example, if the employer so decides that he wants to reduce your hours of contract, now unless this was initially stated in your terms of contract, then the employer cannot unilaterally make those changes to affect you adversely. It means that the employer might not have that right to suddenly reduce your hours. For example, if you are working full-time and then he wants you to work part-time. But if you decide to accept that change, then you can continue to work. But the difficulty arises where the employee opposes those changes at the workplaces. So when the employee opposes the changes at the workplace, these are the three things that are likely to happen. And I will take my time to explain to you slowly. As I've said already, employers don't have the power to unilaterally change the contract or the terms of the employment unless it is initially agreed by the employee. So if the employer decides to, for example, reduce your hours or reduce your pay, then you can continue to work under protest. In that case, you make it clear to the employer that you are not going to accept that change. So your persistent opposition to that may force the employer to avoid making those changes. Now, if the employer goes ahead and considers your behavior as recalcitrant or as insubordination and so dismisses you, then for those of you who have been employed for more than 2 years, you have that right not to be unfairly dismissed. So that's your first right when employers want to bring unilateral changes to the terms of employment. The second right is under Section 139 of the Employment Rights Act. Now, employees who have been working and through no fault of theirs, and the employer decides to dismiss them, then they should be entitled to what they call redundancy pay. And to my surprise, I have had clients that have come to our office that have been made redundant. In fact, the employer have gone around, that there are no jobs for them. Clearly, those employees were in a redundancy situation, and they were entitled to redundancy pay, but employers have avoided paying those redundancy by dismissing them without pay. Now, I want to enlighten you today that where those changes are made without your fault, that those changes have nothing to do with you, that you have not in any way made anything for the employer to dismiss you, then if the employer, one, business is reduced, or if the employer is struggling, or if your services are no longer required, then that employer should pay you redundancy. So don't just simply walk away if your employer tells you that for one reason or other your services are no longer required. You should always know that you are entitled to redundancy pay. And for those of you who may consider that those changes that the employer is seeking to enforce or to impose on you are not within your terms of employment, then you have what they call a right to be constructively dismissed. In this case, you can simply say that to the employer, because of these changes you are making to the terms of the contract of employment, which is against the initial terms of contract that are signed with you, I see myself as constructively dismissed. And in that case, if you have worked with the employer for 2 years or more, then you'll be considered as unfairly dismissed, in which case you'll also be entitled to compensation. So that's your third right. So from all indications, it appears that especially for those of you who have worked for about 4 years, you have immense right at the workplace. And I'm creating you the awareness that come tomorrow, 19th of July 2021, and obviously by September, most of you will have to prepare yourselves of some of these changes, sweeping changes that will be taking place at the workplace. But as I always say, City Law Solicitors, we are here to create this awareness. And for those of you who will be going through these challenges, you can always call upon us to assist you through that journey. Now, listeners, it's now time for me to translate whatever I've said in a Twi language. Atiefo, medamu ina ase, se mre bia mo be kan ho, na mutie ye. Me ameka say your friend Thomas Beyebenwo from City Law Solicitors. Na ena me ba ha, me ba say me no mo be edi nkomo. E fine changes are ekina eba. Ekina Monday, 19th of July 2021. Nema bebre ba besesa. Na science of full bars mo be win say na obi ahye max, baby obako bia no obi ahye max. Yes, when mramu no omo say from ekina ekọ no enye compulsory. Na mum me ensure say me ya na ka say one de opese nkofo stay na omo hye. But for whatever reason we could rush shop na say one share max enye criminal offense. Another time they say that one man want to meet you obi na so share obi as say otwon ho fi no ho na o ma no gap no. You say social distancing and so I end ekina. Na the attorney say omo ko kra omo ko theater ne ade no so you say from ekina ko no ya bie ni nyina obi atumi ko. Na saa de we nyina no yen bi wono ma yende. But ya will be more so and I'm say be a Arabian Yamaniama Bintino. Sadia we are bay. I be a bibia to me. A be an on why you may fee a check. If you can also that fellow so and I'm say the company no be a Jumano baby a surgeon or ye cleaning and all ye Jumabino or more crusu on intino. But if you are buying 80%. And also air by September 2021. Omo get universal tax credit ya mo your friend temporary lift kakra a top up and am want to e wo ho ntin so no and so e ba wi September me ka say universal credit na kasa na ba and mislemo e top up na e kan wo kakra na and so bo ama mo haha mo and e ba wi September 90 say hwe mu asa changes we nyina aba no na che say wo hwe mu a Ojuma wura bit make say ama sisi ya say oba adwuma because bibia ni wo say otena fie biem ebi nso so ana ebi a wonso no Sisi ano yare no, even though ewo na kofom no, rate of infection is high. And te bia na wonsonso bia na diabetes ni yare ni ade bia wo ho no, ukọ adwuma mo no na wanhwe na ukọchichi obi nse bia na wanya yare. And te bia na wo pɛ ne sɛ, wo pɛ sɛ wo traso na wo yɛ adwuma e wo fie. Na we na me kyerɛ sɛ emra no kwan ne de ohe. Emra no kwan ne sɛ ba bia wo yɛ adwuma bia no, employer na wo yɛ adwuma man or duty say o protect your health and safety, which means so making sure say o health no ene ba bia wo yɛ adwuma ho yɛ safe man. Na nti sɛ ko ba sɛ wo fi sɛ wo kɔ adwuma mu ho no mo na sɛ wo hwɛ na niema bia so yɛ a ɛsɛ ɔde twa kwan mu a ama wo kɔ no mo a enya ade a wa akɔ fa yare bi ana sɛ bia wo health no e ba affect wo a na so onye ya witumi ha sɛ mesrew enam because of health and safety concerns intino mean to me ma unless say we assure me say we be we ama me na maba. Now eno no sa no the me person moti ase say onye very good reason because doctor ko akire mu akire say na tie because the danger na say if we be mutuality of obligation employer no wo duty say so ma wo adwuma wonso wo duty say wo ye adwuma no until be an answer when you good reason na wan ko adwuma na wan ko ye adwuma no ye be yi wadi yi wadi a wan hwa e kwan a ye de wa fa so yi wadi no na o mo say eye because when employer no instruction so because employer bia no e will control over ko for mo ye adwuma no enu nti na mo frɛ no control say obeda direct say yi we and na ye say akina ye say because no tua oka na omonso a anya obi a no pese oyɛ adwuma wo fi bi won so a opese oyɛ adwuma e wo office wo no mo obi a watena fie sa wa yɛ board ebi ku adwuma no oyɛ no wo fie no nkola no nam dede ni ade ya moyɛ wo na sum no ama in fact ne ho dare no into opese okɔ adwuma mu no ko hia na mfo ne ade na at least o change in the environment ne kakra nti no saa no the starting point and say obi a ya fa na adwuma bia no hwe contract ne so a ya twro o contract so ba bia say we ye adwuma na o musa coronavirus by there was temporary change se bia nya adwuma wo fie but no ense o contract fundamental contract na onye o mo sign ye ko na ye temporary measure they no so bet me kan employer and say employer me contract just say me ba adwuma and this is here no and so make provisions about matumi aba adwuma e wo mram say obetumi I impress on employer and say o ma wasa akunya na bra adwuma because if you grab a bia wo ye adwuma no wo fi say me kan nje convenient ma and we ye right sir ye na ye wo e wo niama ya from Monday abc afam ya kwan na de na ehia me pa no say me sha ase a me kan ye no say fellow na amankofo tena fi giska na e ba wiye no ana further instance no a government and provide any support employers no companies no and to be when say company bia na do to fellow no a ban any 2 years scan a ban so be yi scan of you no September and this ban yi scan if it was September na just say akwaya say company no ontumi ntua wo car obe try so be changes bi na minim say nkofo bebre no sa changes na ya na ye the for some on them omo omo kwan omo society omo right or contracting na we na make say sa change no assuming say bia we full time na say employer no person o 2 hours so a e bia na wo mortgage o 2 hours so a untumi ntua ana bi so I want to me kwaji adwuma full time baby nti no saa no na che say abrofo fo bi we fe no na che say saa change na e de ba no betumi aka say da bi o mpene nti say o mpene a na che say nyema ba me ensa na ebesi wa kwan first ade betumi asi wa kwan ni mu ne say so ogi tumu dia asembi enu no wanje antumu nyema me ensa first one bi employer and by na adwen say okay so wanje antumu a mbeyi wadi na mo amonya adwuma up to 2 years no krom ha mra na chese se wonya adwuma up to 2 years yi wadi a ontumi mfa employer na nko tribunal na mo amaye adwuma more than 2 years no say you wadi a wo ekwan so betime de employer no akọ tribunal enti eno no saa no eboa say obeka say enam say changes are we no emwa menti no mempene se employer no course no you wadi a ye fe no fair dismissal eno no saa no ko hu lawyer na so we adwuma more than 2 years a the employer no be ko tribunal na waje compensation amount. Second right I want to say ekoba say wo kan employer no antia no ye na adwen so onyi wadi a na kese wa two pay no so na say ama wo bros wontumi ntwia wo betimi aka say employer enam sa changes here waye ama mehwa na kese say me ntumi enye adwuma ni biu entimi aka say adwuma no magyae but the person who ni say we jai adwuma no saa na eni say okokwa because I'm not just say which make iska compensation afi no because the friend of constructive dismissal employer na dey oye no e na ema why be say we jai adwuma na nka onye wa be say we jai adwuma dia no saa no you have been constructively dismissed and na me chire mu say koba na saa na wa adwuma ma acha and also bit make the compensation and our third right no so na say so onye ebone na say employer no onya profiter onye holder ofa awonchira ba na say manya problem this employer na say bia awonchira ba na o ma wadwuma obete wa hours so obechange wo contract obeyesi ni nyina no so wa ni nyina no say o what they call redundancy situation. And employer pin go for by office one and I'm say you were dear 3 months minus 1 day na say we make sure so they are selling be go tribunal and obey inform ikas ya won employers ni bi one mo a say adwuma ni one mo no ma fa kwan bi sa no mo nanam chen sa no ma pam wo fi agimu and no say adwuma ni one mo na we you are in what they call redundancy situation. There's some amount of redundancy pay e tria o ka bu a we adwuma be 10 years and some amount sika mu edu anti me ma kwan mo mpam say bia o aban tuas kan bi mtisi a no adwuma ni ho de be ma nto kofie menu abema menu aba mame yesa ya du abro eno sa ko hu lawyer na so be hu ya be boa na agi scam because one, why you unfairly dismissed, and two, you are entitled to compensation and say no so okay. Anti we ne nkeka ho a ene me ba ya say me ne mobile biti because from Monday ekono nyama bebre ya bi agum enti adwuma ya say ni na be normal but say ma won send that so ono mo to ban ha ya da so ya adwuma no na omo de sa ho kire no abegu ye so no mo akira so bi di ani wa adwuma we na me ba ya say me ba na mama wa ya we say so wo adwuma mu na say nyama we e koso a frɛ lawyer so frɛ en so a ebeboa wo yo ha se ebeboa enua no enti emre bia sa ni ama ne koso no frɛ en a ebedi wanim na sika bia ya se eje ma wo no ebeje ama na kakra ya nso eje be count sa be me ama ya tafro no na ya so ya da wase enti maka we nyina wie no besa bia phone lines are two me sure say mu bi no wa mu tie me a asem no bia enti asem no anye adwuma yi bia mantumi ankasa ma wa ntia asie yi ebi kwa na wo ayi legal question bia ha wo eni ntimi ba bibie phone lines na tu na se wo frɛ me na question a wo no mbema wo answer free wo ba me office a me charge you but so wo frɛ me na dia free enti da mu nyina se mo emre bia no mo ba na mo betie ye enya ba ya nkofo bebre ro hono ma e ba ya na o masan aba abehwe e da mase timo sisi ano me bia bibie phone lines na tu de kwaya ne se me be ye we mo be me kwa na me wo studio ase intino nti mo a mo tie me no me de phone line at ho no mo wo fra meje wo so na me answer the person me kan chira mo so ne say next week Thursday said the baby aye no Beyebenwo be ba hase aba be host ye be ka migration munsem last week ye ka migration munsem bebre ya mo yes care workers ne ade next week you know be hwe omo so mo companies a omutimi age license na omode afasa nkofo na adwuma ekwan ya ombefa so eda age sa license no na omo nso omatena krum ha for so many years omodi be 20 years e bia na omuni bibia a kire say omatena sa 20 years ni ntino omunnim de omoye omo e betu ebo aso a kire na ya mama kwankire a e betimi de agina so de aboa mo na mo so monya mo krata until next week Thursday no sa na ma mienu we ye be no studio ha say timot amre bia mutie no yes say mo emma online 8 p.m. Thursday na money mbidi sankeka hono. Listeners, I have finished the 3 section of this program. I have put the phone lines out there. You can either call on WhatsApp or mobile with all your legal questions. I'm sure that I might not have been able to explain everything in detail, so some of you may want clarification. If for whatever reason you want clarification, you can phone, and then I'll be here to answer the phone, and then answer your questions. I also want to take this opportunity to say that Thursday, Thursday, we'll have continuation of the program we had last Thursday, which is we'll be looking at those of you who own companies, and we'll be looking at how you can obtain license from the Home Office in order to be able to sponsor workers to the UK. And then we are also aware that a lot of you have what they call have lived here continuously for about 20 years, but you may not have any means of proving your residence. Some of you don't have any documentation to show that you'll be here for 20 years. That should not discourage you, because there are ways of proving it. Whenever I say this, some people say that it is not true, but I don't just come on air or on camera and say things. The tribunal has confirmed that even if you were using someone's documents to work, or whatever reason that you have assumed someone's identity for a continuous period of time, it doesn't exclude you from making application under the 10-year route for 20 years residence in the UK. And this has been upheld by the tribunal. So it is an authority that whatever your circumstances, there is a way around it to prove your residence in the UK. And obviously, if you seek proper advice from a lawyer, or if you come to us, we'll be willing to assist you to be able to unravel this mystery, especially for those of you who will not be able to prove that you've been living here for 20 years. I'm still waiting for those of you who may want to call in for your questions. And obviously, I'm very, very, very willing to answer. And I'm still waiting. Okay, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you who have been watching and listening. Uh, After the end of this program, it will still be on my Facebook page, my YouTube, the City Law Solicitors YouTube page. You can continue to watch the program. And above all, I'm also asking that you try and join us on Thursday, and then we can we can have discussion on the immigration matters. Every Thursday, City Law Solicitors is here to discuss all the legal issues, including updates of the law. And Thursday we'll be looking at very topical immigration area, which is sponsorship license and long residence in the UK. Those who have lived in the UK illegally for 20 years. So once again, thank you very much for watching us tonight, and may God richly bless you. Thank you. Thank you.